Thank you for joining me, Jim. Today we have Jim Palmer, is known internationally as the newsletter guru, the go-to resource for maximizing the profitability of customer relationships. Jim is the author of 3 books, The Magic of Newsletter Marketing, The Secret of More Profits and Customers for Life, The Stick Like Glue, which I told you we have, and I'm going to feature this, and I tell my clients to get it. So we have that one, and his latest one, which is Jim's 3rd book, The Fastest Way to Higher Profits, which we have here. And I'm probably going to have you on a future issue because this one's full of some stuff that's excellent.
There's a lot of nuggets in there.
Yeah, there really is. There's some good stuff there. Jim's book, The Magic of Newsletter Market, The Secret to More Profits and Customers for Life, has received rave reviews from some heavy hitters, including GKIC President Bill Glazer, who says Jim Palmer is the go-to guy on newsletters, and ignoring his book will cause undue risk to your business. Success coach Lee Miltier says Jim Palmer is one of the greatest teachers to provide you with techniques and strategies to take you to an entirely new level of understanding and success in your business. Jim, I don't know how you have time for all this, but you're found president of Custom Newsletters Incorporated, parent company of No Hassle Newsletters, No Hassle Social Media, Success Advantage Publishing, Concierge Printing and Mail, Mars, is that MARS or Mars Training Program,
Yep.
Double My Retention, and I've seen you add at least 3 more. I thought I was an A personality. You got me beat by a factor of about 5, guy.
Massive
Oh, and I really want to thank you for helping us here. I really was concentrating on this one, the Stick Like Glue, and I'm kind of using a lot. I want to really focus on that because that's really where we're at. In this book here, you talk about the leaky bucket. The leaky bucket is an analogy for what happens in most businesses, and it's a great analogy. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Sure can. Wayne, first of all, thanks for having me on. And I'm a visual person, so even when I'm writing my books and recognizing people are reading the written word, I like to help paint pictures and images. And so, newsletters, of which I'm known for, is a tool. It's one of the greatest customer retention tools. But I really like the subject that we're talking about now, which is client retention. So everybody's business, whether you are an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, a startup, or even you run a large corporation, I want you to think of your business as a giant metal pail, and it's filled with water. It's got a metal handle, kind of like you'd run down to the lake or the well and fill up. Now, the water in the bucket represents your customers, your current customers, and that is the very lifeblood of your business. Now, every business leaks to one degree or another. And Wayne, if you think of some of the best businesses out there, like maybe Zappos or Disney or Nordstrom's, even those businesses leak to some degree. They might have a couple pinholes, maybe they leak around the seams, but most companies today have holes in the bucket and water pours out. Now, when water pours out, that represents a lost customer. But more important than that, and actually more scary than that, is that lost customer, not just a lost customer, it's lost revenue from all future sales that customer would generate. It's lost referrals that customer would generate, and then you carry it on to the extreme, the referrals and sales that customer, that customer, that customer generate. So when your bucket is leaking water, which means your business is losing customers, many times you don't even know it. It's just people stop coming, they don't call, and out of sight, out of mind. So the only way to keep your business going and growing and profitable is to put more water at the top, and that's customer acquisition. And Wayne, I know you know this, it costs at least 10 times more to attract and acquire and therefore sell to new customers than it does to retain, sell to more to customers you already have. So my analogy is, instead of constantly pouring new water in the bucket as a way to grow your business, plug the holes in your bucket, plug the holes in your business and your system, and keep your customers longer, because we know, Wayne, that when customers stay longer, they spend more and they refer more, and that's always a great thing.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of an echo. I don't know if it's on your end or maybe the microphone or something, or.
I'm not hearing it, but.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully it'll be all right. We basically have a business owner. They have a whole lot more fun getting new customers, though. They really enjoy. They don't, they enjoy going out and getting a new customer, and they don't always see value. That's customer service stuff. You spent a lot of time in that book. One of the things you talked about was like handcuffing your customer, and I know you don't mean that in the literal sense. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean there?
Yeah, you just said something very important, Wayne. When there was a movie, I forget when it was, but as I get older, I lose track of the years, but I think it was this company that sold aluminum siding. It might have been called the Tin Man, I think. And so every time somebody made a sale, they would get up and they'd go to the center of the room and they'd ring this bell, and they'd celebrate the sale. And then what they do, Wayne, is they go right on the phone and start dialing for new sales again. And I think that's pretty illustrative of how many entrepreneurs run their business today. They get a sale, their marketing attracts a client or a referral sends a prospect. The whole know, like, and trust factor has to happen. And then they say, I trust you, I find value in what you're selling, so here's some of my money. I'm now a customer, and they celebrate, the business owner celebrates. But I think that's wrong, because the only thing you should be maybe celebrating is that you have an initial transaction with a person or a customer or a client. And what the smart thing to do, what most very, very profitable companies they do, is they handcuff that business, as I think I use the terminology, to their business, so that they nurture and grow that relationship over time, so that they can sell more of the products and services to that initial transaction. And only then, over the years, when that customer, that initial transaction becomes a full-fledged client who's doing repeat business and sending referrals, then are you maximizing the profitability of that relationship. And when you do that for each and every client you have, you will have a wildly profitable business. If you just simply sell them that product, even if you deliver great service and just hope they come back because you're off getting new business, that may be a profitable business, but it's nowhere near as profitable as if you focus more of your time, attention, and resources on client retention.
Yeah, no, you're right. In our first issue in August, I did a screen capture where I have what I show to my clients a lot of times of how a 10% increase in those 4 things you talked about, just 10% in getting your prospects to convert, 10% to get them to come back 10% more often, get them to buy 10% more every time they're there, and to send 10% more to their friends. You literally are looking at a 45% increase without spending a buck. And
that's right.
And that's why this one is the second one, because we want to talk about, okay, what am I talking about? How do you do it? We showed them the power. Now, how do you do it? And you're known as the newsletter guru, and I'll be honest with you, I almost didn't pick up the book, because I'm one of those CPAs. I did a newsletter back, 6, 7 years ago. This is our 21st year, and I've been doing this since the 70s. We're small businesses, so I've been doing this a long time. So I need a newsletter. So I did the typical newsletter, boring as sin. I did it for about 6 months and I did it for about a year and got no response. And I almost didn't pick it up. I was like, but except I collect business books. And it's amazing I remember, because I read so many of them. Not many of them do I remember. So I remembered yours. And it still took me 3 or 4 months before I thought about it, because then I ran across some of your newsletters that you kept sending out. Why newsletters? Talk to me. Why are they so good, and why are you known as the newsletter guru?
Well, 2 different questions. I'll answer.
Yes, they are.
Let me answer the one about newsletter guru, because I was just doing an interview and they asked me that question, and it's kind of funny because the answer I give may depend on the audience. So I'm going to give you the answer to kind of pull the curtain back, behind the scenes answer, because it's very instructive on how people should grow their business. You know, people are attracted to celebrity experts. We live in a very celebrity-driven culture. And so one of the things that smart entrepreneurs should do is they should brand themselves or anoint themselves as the go-to expert in their niche, in whatever field it is. Because, as I said, when you're looking for a solution, I don't know how many books you might have come across. I know there's a few others out there that talk about newsletters, but my guess is if it said the newsletter guru and it just said another book says somebody's name, more people would be drawn to who they would perceive as the expert. Now, the way that came about is that, about 6 years ago when I started getting into internet marketing and direct response marketing and got hooked up with Dan Kennedy, he was talking about the power of celebrity expertise. And so I said, okay, I should do that. And literally a couple of weeks after I read his book, No BS Wealth Attractions, where he talks about that, a couple of weeks after that, one of my corporate clients, I had written a sales letter for a sales trainer. He was a sales guru, if you will. One issue brought in some new business, and he was thrilled, because I always warn people, it takes a while before your newsletter really catches hold. But I warned him, his name was John. I said, John, just be prepared. It could take 3 to 4, maybe 6 months before your newsletter starts to show results. But then once it does show results, man, it's going to take off. The first issue hit, I think he got 3 new clients. He called me up on the phone. He goes, hey, I'll clean it up. He goes, hey, Palmer, you're a friggin' newsletter guru. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And so, Wayne, I wrote the name down, and just from then I was the newsletter guru. And as you know, I coach entrepreneurs on this strategy. And what I say is, after you anoint yourself, you don't wait for somebody to do it. You anoint yourself the expert, and then you boldly and confidently and continuously promote it at every opportunity. So if you happen to see my weekly videos, listen to my podcast, my newsletters, my books, I'm always Jim Palmer, the newsletter guru. It comes out of me like, sometimes I'll say it in the front like church or something. It's Jim Palmer, the newsletter guru. So it just comes out like second nature. So I think that was an answer to your first question, why the newsletter guru. Now, I think you asked me, Wayne, why are newsletters important, right? Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, why are they so powerful?
Because there is gold in your customer list. You know, you've been in business a long time, and you told me that you have a big customer list, and many of them may be repeat customers and things like that. But the reason newsletters are so important is because they are the number one way to build and develop strong relationships with customers, clients, patients, whatever you want to call it. You know, no matter what business you're in, Wayne, your current customers hold the best chance for growth and for higher profits by selling more to customers you have and by getting them to refer you. And a newsletter is just bar none one of the greatest client customer retention tools available.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. You use it not just for your current customers, though, too. Can I reactivate lost customers? I got a lot of clients for whatever reason haven't come back. You know, I may have outgrown them, or they outgrew me, or whatever, or for some reason they just forgot me. Do you use them?
They are awesome at that. Wayne, they are totally, they're not only are newsletters good at building and developing strong relationships with your current customers, they're good as a prospecting tool, and I know we can talk about that later, because I know you were mentioning freestanding inserts, so I'll talk about that later. But newsletters are also great at reactivating lost customers. I'll give you an example. I'm not sure if it's on my website, that nohasslenewsletters.com right now, but I got a number of testimonies, and I kind of recycle them. One of the gentlemen who became a client of mine, he was a guy that his business was going over the medical or the billing records of doctors' offices, you know, looking for discrepancies or where there's lost money and things like that. And he told me when he became a client that, you know, he was going to use it as a prospecting tool, but also to strengthen relationships. And I said, I don't remember his name, I'll say Bill. So I said, Bill, make sure you mail it also to old former customers. He said, why would I do that? I said, because they want to remember, you want them to remember you. And he said, okay, I'll do it, because he said it was actually a small list, which is good. He sent me a testimonial about 3 months later, Wayne, and I'll paraphrase it, but he said, I lost a customer about 6 months ago because a competitor offered a lower price for what I do. But he said he's just been through about 6 months of finding out what lower price means. He wasn't getting the same service, and, you know, in a nutshell, to keep the story short for the interview, it just didn't work out. He said, I started getting your newsletter, and he said on the second issue I called and said, I'm kind of embarrassed because I, you know, kind of terminated you, but could you come back? And, you know, I said, hey, there it is. There's the newsletter bringing back a lost customer. So you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, and when you said getting them to remember, when I'm talking to people about the newsletters, and you've made me a convert, so I'm pushing a lot of my clients to go that way. I bring up a story of a plumber that I had. I mean, we were doing some houses, and I had some clients that are in construction field and plumbers for whatever reason. We just had the darndest time getting them. And I got a referral. I don't even know how we did it. We had some problem on a holiday weekend, try to get a plumber out. And this guy, somehow I got his name, and I picked it up and called him, and he did a great job. So 6 months later, a client of mine is asking me for a plumber. I can't remember him. I can't remember him. I must have paid him with cash because it was probably a holiday weekend, and that's what he wanted or something. That was the deal he made or something. It's like, wow, I mean, this guy was great. I'd like to use him. It's 2 years later. I have no clue who he is.
Yeah, I have a similar story, so we won't go there.
Yeah, it's amazing how business owners, we think, nobody's going to forget us. But you see it as a powerful reason to send them, don't you?
And when I speak to audience, I say, here's the thing, folks. It's not your customer's job to remember who you are. It's not your customer's job to remember all the different services you offer, all the products you sell. It's your job to constantly remind them. And you know what? It is an investment. Now, the fact of the matter is, you probably know this, it probably costs about $1 a month to send a newsletter to somebody. Give or take, whatever. Let's just say it's $1 a month. So would you invest $12 a year in a customer? And if you know that what that average customer is worth on the lifetime, it becomes a very easy decision to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why it's so important to know that lifetime value.
Absolutely.
Newsletters, though, when I start mentioning newsletters, I get a ton of answers, and I'm going to throw them all at you and let you answer them at once rather than one at a time. I mean, I get it. I've even used them myself sometimes. Like, yeah, all right, you've convinced me I need to do a newsletter, but my writing sucks, or I get, my business is boring. Who the heck's going to care about what I do? And I'm guilty of this one. I struggle with this one. For 20, 25 years, I've written in as technical terms, so it's very difficult for me. I can talk all day. I can talk to clients all day. I can train all day. I sit down and write, and the keyboard, all of a sudden, I change personalities.
It's a drag.
It's been a struggle. It really has.
Yeah.
And well, let's just go with those three. I get excuses because they think it's so hard. How is it not hard? I mean, I say newsletter, do one, and their eyes are like, oh yeah, I got to do one. And I convince them, and then they don't want to do it.
Well, the funny thing is, Wayne, one of the greatest ways to create a successful business is to cure somebody's pain, okay? And that's how I started No Hassle newsletters. I was hearing from my corporate clients in my first business, I never know what to put in it. I don't have time to write it. It takes too long to produce it and all these different things. I said, if I provide content for people that they can use in their newsletters, that's curing a pain. Second thing I did is I provided the done-for-you newsletter templates. That was solving a pain. And then I was hearing, well, we don't know how to get it printed and mailed. And that's when I started Concierge Print and Mail. So my own business model is an example of how I listened to what my customers' pains were, and then I solved them. So I don't want this to be a Jim commercial, so let me answer the question about newsletters. Here, most people fail at newsletter marketing with all the best intentions for a couple reasons. Number one, they make their newsletter all about their business. They think, okay, because I'm an automotive repair guy, or I'm a carpet cleaner, or I'm a coach, whatever it is, or I'm a CPA, then people want to read all about what I do. And people then, the second mistake along those lines is they think this is what the people are interested in because that's the relationship they have with me. Wayne, that couldn't be further from the truth. The newsletters, I get a newsletter from my CPA. He doesn't use my service. I like him anyway. I always bust his chops, but he sends me an 8-page newsletter. All right, so it's 2 11 by 17 sheets full of 8 pages, no pictures. It's like 10-point Times Roman text, and it's all articles. And I'm dating myself now, but I don't know what current tax. But I remember the one he sent me, which was after the Sarbanes-Oxley something came out. Right. And then here's what you need to know to maximize your return, minimize your tax liability. You can picture the language, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not reading this. He comes to my office once a quarter, and I said, Scott, I'm not reading this. He goes, seriously, Jim, why wouldn't you at least read that? I said, because that's why I hire you. I don't want to know tax code. I want you to keep me lean, legal, and profitable, knowing the numbers. I'm a marketing guy. I know how to build a business. I don't want to be an accountant. I don't even want to know tax law. I trust you, and I hope you're always doing a great job for me. But, that's what you do. This is what I do. And so I provide done-for-you newsletters. I sell newsletters to even accountants. And the successful ones don't mess with the formula. Now, my formula is this, Wayne, and it doesn't matter whether it's an accountant or a coach or, a truck driver. It really doesn't matter. You want to provide one lead article on the front page. This is your main story, and I call this your success story. And your success story every month tells a story about how you have helped another client with one of your products or services. Now, it's very important that it reads like a story. This is one of the things I teach, is that so it's not featured item of the month or featured product of the month, nothing like that. If you are an insurance guy, I remember I had an insurance client. The headline was, local manufacturer saves $23,000 on their annual insurance premiums, and then the subheadline was, here's how they did it. And then I told the story of how this company went in and did an audit. Now, Wayne, this guy, when I met with him, he told me, Jim, we do free audits. We do this, that, and the other thing. And I said, every insurance guy does a free audit. And you know what your customers and prospects think that is? It's an invitation for you to come into their office and sell them. Right. So we're not going to mention audits, okay? What happens after you do an audit? Assuming you're very good at your job, what happens? He said, well, and that's when he told me the story. And I said, bingo, that's the headline right there. And what I just told you. And then we told the story of how he did that. And then at the end it says, if you're interested to see if we could save you $23,000, I said, give a couple of ways. You can call, email, go to the website, fax, whatever. We give a number of ways to respond, telephone number. And that is how you write a success story. Almost the entire rest of the newsletter is irrelevant, but to make it something your customers will read, it has to be considered non-work related. I use some very technical terms, Wayne. You might have seen them in my books, but I say there's work stuff, which is like the lead article I just mentioned, that's work related. And then there's other stuff, and those are articles that have nothing to do with the relationship that you and I would have professionally. And an example of that would be just pick up any Reader's Digest. That is a book about no one topic, but there's your true life heroic story, there's crossword puzzles, there's humor, there's how to talk to your kids about money, how to have work and home life balance, whatever. And see, these are little short stories and articles that people love to read. Now, Wayne, I'm looking at the camera now, but when I talk to an audience, I can always see a couple people kind of go like this. And I know they're going, no, not my customers. And I'm like, you can believe me or not believe me. I'm getting too old and tired to try and convince you. But I will tell you, if you just follow my formula, not only will your customers look forward to the newsletter, they're going to read it. If they read your newsletter, they're going to know who you are. And unlike the company you just mentioned previously, they're going to remember your name so that when they're ready to buy or when they're ready to refer again, you're going to be the first person they think of. And that's how you craft a wonderful newsletter that's going to get you results.
And it works. I mean, I got people, usually we don't have them waiting in the waiting room, but during tax season they'll get crazy and they'll show up. Invariably, they have the newsletter in their hands. But more importantly, new clients that I've never mailed it to have walked in with the newsletter. Talk about that a little bit. Why are newsletter better than an email? My emails don't get passed as much as the newsletters do, I've discovered.
Well, one of the things that happens with a print and mail newsletter, dinosaur newsletter, is that they will get read by multiple readers because they'll get passed around. Nobody forwards email newsletters anymore. So even if you are one of the businesses is lucky enough to get any number of your clients to read your newsletter online, it's not going to get forwarded because it is a giant no-no. I mean, 10 years ago, maybe somebody thought it was cool and, hey, look at this. Not anymore. It's like, man, that's like smoking in your car. You just don't do it anymore, right? And so, but with a paper and ink newsletter, it will get passed around. It'll get left on a desk. If you're a consumer type newsletter, it's going to get left on your coffee table. Let me refer to another testimonial just because I always like to provide evidence. One of my clients, No Hassle Newsletter clients, was in the insulation business. I had insurance on the brain. She was in the insulation business, and she had this technology. Her lead story on 1 month was this spray foam insulation. Okay, and her business is in Pennsylvania. She mailed it to a past client, I think was in Ohio, and for some reason that newsletter got in the hands of a contractor in Hawaii. I don't know whether he took it on a plane and went to a trade show. I don't know the route that it went. But this contractor in Hawaii called my No Hassle Newsletter customer in Pennsylvania and said, I'm renovating a very old historic building. There's no room for regular, fiberglass bat type of insulation. I'm interested in your spray foam insulation. Long story short, Wayne, I think, after a couple of months of back and forth, it turned into a $400,000 contract. This client of mine was so happy. She sent me a testimony, which I truly love because I always talk about it takes, 4 to 6 months for your newsletter to work. They will get passed around. And she said, Jim was right on both accounts, and we got a $400,000 deal. So it's very, very powerful, Wayne, if people do that.
I'm kind of glad we're doing this interview because I'd actually forgotten a couple of things that we had talked about, got the newsletter started, put it on autopilot, and forgot something. I forgot about doing freestanding inserts. Talk about it, because I swear to God, we're going to be doing them.
Yeah. Well, here's I tell people one of the ways to get your newsletters read is to not make it all about your business. I sort of talked about that a few minutes ago. So some clients of mine will say, well, Jim, how do I make money at my newsletter if I'm not going to sell in your newsletter? I said, first of all, your newsletter is a relationship building tool. Stronger relationships always equal more sales. So just go with that higher level premise, if you will. Specifically, though, here's a great strategy on how to get your newsletter to actually generate dollars that you can actually, tie to the newsletter. It's called a freestanding insert. So imagine you have a 4-page newsletter, 11 by 17 sheet folded, that becomes a 4-page newsletter. What you then want to do is have a sheet of paper. I have no paper on my desk. Okay. So you have a sheet of paper, just 8.5 by 11. It could be green paper, pink paper, canary, it doesn't matter. Print it in black and white on one side. And that rides inside the 4-page newsletter. So that's called a freestanding insert. It doesn't drive up postage or anything. It just rides along for free. So your newsletter, in the body of the newsletter, that is non-salesy, non-marketing, fun, informative, entertaining stories that your customers will like to read and therefore continue to read the newsletter. But the freestanding insert is where you can promote. It's where you can promote an event, where you can promote something that you have on sale or some kind of an event or something that's going on. A freestanding insert is also a way I mentioned a couple minutes ago. We would talk about how to use a newsletter for prospective clients. So if we're okay on time, can I give you an example of that?
Go on.
Okay. So let's say that you are a financial planner. Okay. So in your business, you probably partner with some financial planners, and so they like to work within, let's just say, a 5-mile radius of their home. They're not working with people because they have a lot of face-to-face meetings. So a financial planner, he knows exactly who his perfect target customer is. He knows how old he is, male or female, home value, estimated net worth, number of kids. He's got all the demos. And so then you go, in addition to your own mailing list, let's say you're a financial planner and you got 200 clients. You then go to a mailing list broker and you get a list of 100, 200, whatever, names that fit your profile based on your already successful business. And you start mailing these folks your newsletter. What I suggest is you mail month 1 and month 2 without a freestanding insert, so they're like, what's this? Who's this? Maybe they'll read about you. On month 3, Wayne, you send a freestanding insert that invites them to a free teleseminar that's going to be held, and you give the date, and here's what you're going to cover. It would probably depend on the time of the year, but if it was me, if I was in January, here's 5 things you can do right now to lower your tax burden, or here's we're going to discover 10 strategies. I'm going to reveal 10 strategies on how to retire sooner, with more comfort or peace of mind, whatever. And then they come to a teleseminar. One of the reasons teleseminars work so well is, the person speaking doesn't really know who's out there. So the people who come on the teleseminar, they feel safe, okay? Even though they may think maybe there's going to be a sales presentation after the information and the content, but it's okay because I can hang up anytime. So there is a low threshold, low threat level, if you will. DEFCON 1 or something like that. So 2 months of sending a prospect your newsletter, gets to know you, gets to anticipate it. Then the 3rd month invites you to a teleseminar. He gets on the teleseminar, he or she. Now, instead of just reading the written word, they're hearing voice inflection. When I do interviews like this, I tend to talk with hopefully some enthusiasm, and I monitor my voice. And just like you meeting with a client, you're going to show your level of expertise as a CPA. And so now, instead of just the newsletter, they're hopefully forming a little bit of a first impression that you really know what you're doing. You're giving some good content. At the end of the teleseminar, you make an offer, which is the next step, is to invite whoever's interested in a free one-on-one consult, or maybe you limit, say, the first 10 people that call, we'll do a free 1-hour consult, whatever it is. Now, imagine if you sent this newsletter to 100 prospects. Maybe you got 25 or 30 of them on the phone for the telesummit. Maybe you got 5 people to actually go for the one-on-one personal consult, and maybe you closed 1 or 2 of them. Knowing the lifetime value of a client to a financial planner, do you think it's worth mailing those prospective newsletters with a freestanding insert? I think so. And so you compare that strategy, Wayne, with dialing for dollars and doing cold calls, and which one do you think is going to be more fruitful?
Yeah, and I hate dialing for dollars.
I'd
really hate that. What's this Don't be a newsletter pansy. What is that? How did it?
That's funny. You know, Bill Glazer, gosh, this goes back 5 years now. I'll just give you a quick history. So 5 years ago, I was No Hassle Newsletter. My company was exhibiting at a Glazer Kennedy event. And Bill said, Jim, I want you to create some kind of a report or something you can give all the attendees that come to the super conference. And at the end of it, he just chided me a little bit. He said, don't make it one of these 3 secrets to success type things that everybody gives away. Come up with something different. And I thought about it for a day or two, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to write a report that's the opposite. In other words, what are the 2 or 3 things, what are the 2 or 3 reasons that someone who with all of the best intentions want to start out being a newsletter marketer, marketing their business with a newsletter, but fail? And so, you know, I've been doing newsletters for 30 years, Wayne, and I went back and I thought about it, and I came up with 2 or 3 reasons why someone starts out with a newsletter and then stop and then said, that doesn't work. Jim didn't know what he was talking about. And so I identified those. Now, I'm good buddies with Mike Capuzzi. He's a gentleman who invented copy doodles, and he came over to my house. We were going to go to lunch, and he said, what are you doing? I told him what I was doing. He said, well, give me an example. I said, well, one example would be they announced their first issue with all the fanfare. You know, you can almost read the first column. Hey, you're our valued customers. We so much appreciate you. We're giving you a free subscription to our monthly newsletter. You know, you're going to get this every month, blah, 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 blah. And then the second monthly issue goes out in 90 days. And then the next one goes out in 30 days. And the next one goes out in 6 months. And so there's no consistency. And things that arrive sporadically in your mail are generally perceived as junk mail. And so it doesn't catch hold. So that's one. Another one, just to give you an idea, would be not mailing your full customer list. Somehow trying to decipher who is worthy of receiving your newsletter because they've been a customer for so long, they've spent X number of dollars. And I say, if you've got a name and address, you know who they are, you know they have an interest in what you do, or maybe they were a past customer, you mail them every single month, and you just keep going. So I told this to Mike. He goes, well, why would people do that? And I go, I don't know. I think they're pansies. He goes, no, they're newsletter pansies. I'm sorry, that came out longer than I thought, but that's
pretty cool.
That's the story of the newsletter pansy report. Wayne, that thing's been downloaded, I think, over 800,000 times in over almost 5 years. And so it's kind of, and I use it in my marketing. And even customers that become clients of No Hassle newsletters, they get a copy of the Pansy report because I want to make sure they understand it's going to take 3 or 4, maybe 6 months for your newsletter to catch hold. But then once it does, you're going to have a whole different mindset instead of one of, oh, I got to create the newsletter again to get that newsletter out the door, because every time we do it generates more repeat referral business and referrals. And so that's the story of the newsletter Pansy report.
There's a ton of lessons in here. That's pretty good. A few new programs you mentioned, the no hassle social media.
Yeah.
Double my retention. And I'm a latecomer to social media. I mean, I'm going to confess, Jacqueline, the marketing person, was like, you got to do it, you got to do it, you got to do it. And I'm like most business owners going, I don't see how it's going to help me. Once I just tell it quick, real fast. Once we started getting serious about it, the people that went to our blog probably increased 100 times, never mind 10 times. And it's just, I'm kind of sold, though I still don't know what I'm doing half the time. So what is this program? And maybe I need it.
Wayne, I was just going to say, you sir, sign up for No Hassle social media.
Sounds like I need to.
Just like with No Hassle newsletters, you know, when I got into social media, I will just confess right here, I was kicking and screaming. I didn't want another thing to learn. I didn't want another thing to do. I didn't want to post on Facebook or tweet on Twitter. I didn't want to do videos because early on when I saw people doing videos, they're holding their little flip camera up like this and they're like looking up your nose. I don't know what to say. It looks weird. That's like, I don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
But, I have a couple smart friends and they kept pushing me to try it. Interestingly enough, a couple of these friends are now out of it because, you know what, it is a little bit of a time commitment. But, the interview I was on right before this one, they were asking me a lot about social media. And I think this is the description or the reason that I give why I do so much social media. And I would encourage you and everybody else watching this to do social media because people do business with people they know, like, and trust. We know that. And you have to develop relationships with people. And the third point is the sales cycle. The time that it takes from when somebody first discovers you, like who is this person, to when they actually give you money, that sales cycle has gotten longer and longer over these years, especially in a hard economy. It's gotten much longer. And so I'm a very big fan of what I call drip marketing, and that's where you meter out information, golden nuggets or whatever you want to call it. I happen to call it my smart marketing and business building advice, but you continually drip information to prospective clients over time. And the reason you keep doing that relentlessly without stopping is that, Wayne, people buy when they're ready to buy. They don't buy because you happen to send them a postcard or a newsletter 3 times in a row. They buy when they're ready to buy. When their situation or their circumstances warrant it, they're ready to buy. That's when you got to be in there. So, social media, when I started having a lot of success with it, and, so someone asked me, well, why do you do it? And I said, the only reason I would do anything is it makes me money. I'm not on there to talk. I have no personal connections like with family and things. My Facebook page, there's like 5,000 friends, as they call them. There's over 20,000 followers on my fan page. The only reason I maintain those every single day, well, probably 5 to 6 times a week, is that it develops relationships, and I can absolutely prove that it makes me money. It brings me new clients. I sell books because of it. People read my books. They become No Hassle newsletter clients. They may become coaching clients. A lot of it starts with social media. Now, specifically to your question, Wayne, so I started doing a little digging in. After I started having phenomenal results, I became a social media convert, if you will. And I started looking in and asking people, like yourself, why don't you do it? The 2 reasons that they kept giving me were, I don't have time for it, I don't know what to say, I don't want to look stupid, things like that. So No Hassle Social Media I created. It's been over a year. It's doing very, very well. We provide tons of content every single month, pre-written blog posts on, I think, over 70 different topics. I clearly cover 80 to 90% of the industries out there. We give you blog posts, Facebook posts, Twitter tweets. I give you email scripts, video scripts. I even give you auto response, things you can use in your autoresponders. And it's $47 a month, Wayne. It's the cheapest way to get into and prosper and profit using social media.
I should have found you about 8 months ago.
It's not too late, my friend.
Yeah, no, it isn't. I need help. I'm going to end this, but one last question here. The magazine, basically the way we always put it, really we're using a formula. I'm a math guy, sorry. And we're basically saying good ideas plus action equals massive profit. So at the end of everything, I usually write them, but I'm going to give you a shot to throw some at me. What are the top 5 things that a business owner that's not doing newsletters and not doing social media, you can do 5 in each or the top 5 for both, what should they do in the coming month? What would you recommend?
I'm gonna attempt to give you 5, but I'm just gonna combine them because they really are the same. Yeah. If you're doing a newsletter, or if you're doing social media, or if you're doing video marketing, if you're doing any of that, the number one reason you want to do that is because you want to grow your business and significantly boost your profits. Well, Jim, that's kind of obvious. What do you mean by that? Again, you need to throw a wider net. You need to think bigger. With social media, and which is driven by the internet, you now have the ability to connect with people all over the country and all over the world. Wayne, I have clients in 9 different countries, and I only offer English, so far. I only offer English articles and things like that. I don't want to sound ignorant. I didn't know there were 9 English-speaking countries. But every time I got a new client that would sign up to one of my programs, and they're from a different country, I'm like, wow. And I didn't necessarily specifically market that country, but people find you a number of different ways. So one of the things about social media and video marketing and specifically is that video is very good for a couple things. It's good for SEO, so it helps, videos help people find you for even when they're searching for things. So if somebody was actually searching for newsletters, newsletter tips, newsletter marketing, anything like that, it's very likely, in addition to No Hassle newsletters or perhaps my book, they're going to find my web TV show called newsletterguru.tv, and then they're going to be able to watch videos where I teach marketing, very much like we're doing here on this interview. And so not only do I teach them, but they get to experience me, if you will. They see, well, Jim looks like a nice guy. I actually had a coaching client, it's like 2 years ago, and he said, Jim, I followed you for over a year, and I take my time buying. So this is actually a very good example. It just popped in my head. And they said, I take my time when I invest in somebody, especially a coach, because there's a lot of people out there who just say things or they really kind of exaggerate claims and things like that. But he said, you know what? I think you're like the Andy Griffith of marketing. You just seem like a regular guy who shares information, and, you know, that's why he became a coaching client. The reason I shared that story with you, Wayne, is because if he was simply reading my blog post, he might get a flavor for, okay, I know some ideas about marketing and growing a business. But it was through watching my videos over the course of a year. I actually don't recall if he purchased a book. He probably bought a book, but really it was the videos. And he first discovered me on Facebook. So one led to the other, and that's how I got him as a coaching client. I mean, that's just one example of how it works. Now, with newsletters, you're absolutely going to keep more of the customers you have now. They're going to generate more sales by selling those customers some of the other items that you sell that they aren't even aware of. They're going to refer more customers to you because you're maintaining the relationship. You told a story about who you couldn't remember your plumber's name. I'll give you a real quick story. When I refinanced my home about 10 years ago, I was so excited and enthused about the service that I got from this mortgage broker. I referred him like 3 or 4 times to friends and neighbors. About 6 months later, my neighbor asked me, hey, I'm going to refinance my home. Who's that guy you were jabbering about like 6 months ago? Wayne, just like you, I couldn't remember his name. I couldn't remember the name of the business. I said, look, I can get in the car and drive you there today, but I don't know who it is. And that is one of the main reasons to do a newsletter, to build top-of-mind awareness so that when people are ready to refer or they're ready to buy, they know exactly who you are. Sorry about that. I thought I turned the ringer off.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.